Egyptians are heading to the polls to vote in a controversial constitutional referendum. Matt Bradley is joining us from Cairo, where there has been an explosion today in front of a courthouse. Matt, what's been happening there, and what exactly are these changes that people are voting on today?
Well, this referendum on the new constitution would essentially enshrine some major, more power for the military. It would allow the military to appoint its own defense minister. It would basically perpetuate the system from before the revolution, in which the military was kind of the eminence grise behind the state. So what we're seeing right now is an outpouring of love for the Egyptian military and their decision to oust President Mohammed Morsi on July 3rd following massive street protest against Morsi's rule. And the military and the interim government have taken some very serious pains to portray this referendum and the new constitution as voting in favor of the coup regime, basically legitimizing the ouster of Morsi and the interim government that has been in place for the last 6 months.
Right, and these changes also affect the role that the religion will play in the state and in politics and government. What does that mean for religious parties like the Muslim Brotherhood?
Well, let's be clear that most of the changes that are enshrined in this new constitution that's being voted on today and tomorrow are not very different from the constitution that Mr. Morsi's allies passed in 2012 and 2013. So this is not really that much of a difference. What we're seeing here is a document that's a little bit lighter when it comes to questions of the Islamist role in the functioning of the state. So this new constitution, the biggest thing it does with relation to Islamism is it removes an article called Article 219 that had spelled out exactly how religion and the role of religious institutions would play in the drafting and approval of legislation. So now this document is somewhat more secular than the document that was passed a year ago.
I see. And are we expecting a high turnout today? Are we going to be able to read anything into the popularity of the interim government?
We are expecting a high turnout. The government's expecting a high turnout. But this means if there is a high turnout, the government has already said, quite confidently, that this will be a vote in favor of their rule. And even General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who's the defense minister and is the man who actually ousted Morsi after all of these massive protests against his rule, he's said that he will consider running for president if there's a big outpouring of support for this constitution. Now, Egyptians have 2 days to demonstrate that, and it looks like we're expecting, and the government is expecting, that there will be quite a big turnout, and that the Egyptian public will voice a lot of support for this new government, for the constitution, and against the Muslim Brotherhood, who only a year ago were in power.
Well, we will watch what happens with interest. Matt, thanks very much for joining us.